There was once a time in the automotive industry when technology of the future and the old mechanical engineering ways of the past came together in a perfect harmony. And that was sometime around 2005 to maybe 2015, 2018. Something went completely wrong to the end of last decade, and I'm trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Today we're taking a look at the 2015 Audi S5. This is the B8.5 generation, in my opinion, a hidden gem. Maybe the perfect balance in Audi's history. And in today's video, we're going to check out what the S5 was offering in 2015 and see if it's still a great car today. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Cadillac of Norwood in Norwood, Massachusetts for letting come down here to check out one of their used cars on their inventory. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Cadillac inventory. Back in the day, the B8.5 S5 commanded a price tag of just over $60,000 for the model we have today, which is actually quite pricey if you think about it way back in 2015. Now in 2025, you can find these all day between 20 and 30 grand, and in my opinion, they are very undervalued, providing a lot of performance for the price more importantly. There was a small window of time when everyone on YouTube owned the B8.5 S4 or S5 and did a mod series. That was so popular back then. Now in 2025, mod series don't do very well when it comes to viewership, so the S4 and S5 have been completely forgotten about. But it does open up a great opportunity for those of you looking for a fun car that's affordable and also a car you can modify and have a lot of fun. The beauty of the S5 is that it's not between the A5 and the RS5. The RS5 was the more aggressively tuned sports coupe with a V8, whereas this has the V6, and it still gives you a good amount of performance. You also need to remember too is that the B8.5 S5 was designed and engineered primarily to be for the Autobahn and for high-speed cruising. If you wanted a car that could carve out the back roads, that would be the TTS or TTRS. The S5 was not going to be that car. It was a luxury coupe with better performance. But really though, and what I find so appealing about the S4 and S5 is the understated design, because from far away, you wouldn't be able to notice the difference between the A5 and S5 unless you were an enthusiast and you knew your cars. Aside from the satin chrome side mirror caps and also the quad exhaust tips, this kind of looks like an A5. There's nothing distinguishable about this car whatsoever. And even the model we have today, it just screams and shouts that it needs aftermarket wheels, it needs some carbon fiber bits, it needs something to the exterior that makes it look sporty, fun, and enthusiast focused. But its understated design is what made it so popular. Up front, you are going to have LED daytime running lights with bi-xenon headlamps. So this was far before the days we had LED lighting coming standard across all trims and all models. Also, you had fog lights as well for better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions. For me, what I love is the minor touches, the chrome accents for that grille, the S5 and supercharged badges as well. Now, a lot of people in the aftermarket would go with the honeycomb mesh grille from the RS, which I think is a nice touch here. Also, the smoother body lines just makes this car look very clean and modern. Later on with the B9 and B9.5, you did get a bit more of an aggressive front fascia, larger headlamps, and then for the B9.5, you got the honeycomb mesh grille, which in some ways kind of cheapened the experience of buying an RS model. But what we had here for 2015 is still really nice. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, you have those 18-inch alloy wheels with those brake calipers with the S5 badge. Again, very understated. But the defining feature for the side profile is going to be those satin chrome side mirror caps, which you love to see. You don't want those body color side mirror caps. That's for the A5. You have chrome accents outlining the windows, and I see why a lot of people did go with the black optic package later on. And as you make your way around to the back, those quad exhaust tips let you know this car means business and is going to be very fun. Also, I still like this look. I love the rear end of this car. It's not over-styled, it's very simple, very of its time. Also, there will be a subtle deck lid spoiler matching the body lines that you have here for the rear fascia. But ultimately, what you had with the S5 design-wise was very understated, and that was the beauty of this car. That's what made it so fun to own and drive. And briefly taking a look at the cargo area, I have all my camera gear here. 3 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod. So you can easily store a set of golf clubs if you are going to the country club. The real gem though here for the Audi S5 for the B8.5 generation is this motor. You're looking at a 3-liter supercharged V6. Producing 333 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque, it can be paired with either a 6-speed manual or 7-speed dual-clutch automatic. which even back in 2015, finding these in a manual was very, very rare. Most of the S5s that were pulling into Cars and Coffee were automatic, and probably because a lot of the buyers wanted that straight line speed. You're looking at right on 4.6 seconds, 0 to 60 with the automatic, and some people felt back then it was slow, and due to this car's weight, it might be a bit more cumbersome than some of the other coupes of its time and even today, but mid-4s in 2025 is still very respectable. Also, you do have Audi's Quattro all-wheel drive system, giving you a 40-60 distribution, so somewhat rear-wheel drive bias, but it's not going to be like a Ford Mustang where you can kick out that rear end. Now, also one thing I want to point out here too is that as history has shown us, this engine has been phenomenal. It's beautiful, it's great, it sounds great. But back in 2015, some people weren't too happy because it replaced the 4.2 liter V8 out of the B8 S5. And with the S4 always having this engine, you can kind of look at it as being the beginning of the consolidation for both nameplates, where now there's no longer an A4 or S4, it's all under the A5 or S5 moniker. Hopping inside the S5, you're greeted by a tactile and analog experience here, where you are going to have an infotainment system and information display, but it still feels driver-centric and driver-focused. And some of it has to do with the fit and finish, and also the seat positioning as well. Because you don't feel like you're sitting on top of the platform and chassis. Instead, you are a part of it. Audi doesn't necessarily make cars like this anymore in the 2020s. Now, before we get into the technology and the dashboard layout, let's talk about these seats. Our model has power-adjustable, heated leather trim seats for both the driver and passenger. Now, we also have the S5 logo being embossed on the backs of these seats for a nice touch. Some people I know for a fact would prefer the Alcantara interior, which I don't blame them at all, even though it's difficult to keep clean. The Alcantara was really a nice touch and a sporty touch at that, where this kind of feels like a Grand Tour. It really does. Even though in 2015 it wasn't considered a Grand Tour, it just has some of those elements and those aesthetics that, you know, now 10 years later, I look at this car very differently than I did back in 2015. As you take a look at what's in front of you, you are going to have a flat-bottomed leather-wrapped steering wheel, which feels really nice in the hands, aggressive 10-2 and firm 9-3 grips, also very big paddle shifters, which are going to feel really nice when you're rolling through the gears yourself. You are going to have buttons on the left side of the steering wheel, which will help you control that small information display. This is not going to be super in-depth. This is nowhere close to Audi's virtual cockpit of today or for the B9 and B9.5 generation, but it will help you scroll through some basic information there. Then as you take a look at the infotainment system, this is Audi's MMI user interface, the old school user interface, where it's not even a touchscreen. Instead, you'll be using the buttons and dial found on the center console to help you scroll through different menus and also select the drive mode you want to be in, which is really cool. You're going to have comfort, auto, dynamic, and individual. Dynamic and individual is more than enough for me. That would make me very happy here with the S5. Now, I do think, though, that Audi perfected all of this, though, later on with the B9 generation with a touchscreen and still having physical buttons to help you get to different menus. But this dial works more than fine. You can scroll through your telephone, your info, navigation, media, radio, and tone. One thing I also want to point out here is that, yes, we don't have Apple CarPlay, but we do have Bluetooth connectivity. So at least we have that here, or they had that in 2015. Also, what you had back in 2015 with this model, you do have a rear backup camera with trajectory. That was not mandated in 2015. So that gave you a bit more confidence when you were backing out tight spots or parking on a city street. As you make your way down towards the center console, you will have a CD player. That is right, if you're buying one of these and you have a stack of CDs, you can still listen to your favorite music. Beneath that, you will have your drive select button for your different drive modes, of course, then your traction control on and off. But best of all, though, you are going to have dual zone climate control for the S5, so that way your passenger can either be cool or warm depending on the time of year. You'll have physical buttons and dials to help you control that climate control, and also your AC, front rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction, also your 3-level heated seats. For the center console itself, you will have a small tray for a 12-volt outlet. Also, you will have your electronic parking brake, your start-stop button, then your traditional gear shifter here in that circular design. Love to see it. Then as we inch closer towards the center storage compartment, you are going to have 2 cup holders here and a small cubby which did make its way on future generations for some loose change or a pen or two. Your center armrest can slide forwards and backwards. That way you can just relax on those longer road trips. For that center storage compartment, though, no USB, no USB-C. It's only deep enough for maybe one smartphone. And lastly, to really set the tone for the S5, we have a moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. And then briefly taking a look at the second row, at least it's not as tight as it could be. They were far worse back then in 2015. So if you have a small kid or you have some smaller friends tagging along with you, they can probably join on a quick drive. Whether it was back in 2015 or now in 2025, the B8.5 S5 has always been remembered as being too heavy, too cumbersome, and maybe not so agile or as athletic as some competitors out there, although maybe the 4 Series is probably the better choice as a car that could carve up back roads and corners, whereas the Lexus RC and the Infiniti G37 were kind of grand tours of their day, much like I'm experiencing here with the S5. But people wanted more. They wanted more out of this car and platform, and was that really necessary? Did you really need more? Yes, you had the RS5, but was the S5 more than adequate? So far, I think absolutely. Even now, a 0 to 60 time around 4.5 seconds is pretty quick, and I think very, very enjoyable. And we're going to test that out today on this empty back road here. So we're going to pull to a stop. There is nobody here at all, which is great. Complete stop. Pop it into manual mode. Let's set off. Oh, the crackles of that exhaust is amazing. Unbelievable. And the gear shifts are instantaneous. And we'll do one more quick acceleration here for good measure. The crackle of that exhaust just adds so much to this car, and Audis today don't necessarily have that same type of experience. And I'm not just talking about the engine, no, because a turbocharged 6-cylinder is really great. I mean, it's a very quick car now with the S4 and S5. But there's something very special about this supercharged V6. You don't hear much of it up front, at least stock, but there's just an old school vibe to this car that a lot of the new Audis just don't have. It's a sense of soul and passion. Unlike Audis of today, the B8.5 most certainly feels heavy, and that translates to the steering input, where you have to throw it around a bit. There's some muscle that needs to be involved with this car. It doesn't feel as nimble or as athletic or as seamless as a B9, B9.5 in the corners. And Audi did listen to the critics, so did a lot of manufacturers in this market, resulting in numb driving experiences. Although I do think that the B9 and B9.5 are great cars. It's just that the B8.5 is offering something very, very different, very analog, very tactile, and almost old school German in a way, even though probably in 2015 a lot of journalists and buyers felt that this was a bit too modern and futuristic. Further building off of this, the seat positioning is very different than the B9 and B9.5. You feel as though you're a part of the chassis and suspension, very Grand Tour-like in that way. And because of all of this, you feel every bump and imperfection. You feel that this has a sports tune suspension. The B9 and B9.5 masked all of that with the MLB Evo platform, providing a lot more comfort, smoothness to the ride quality, in a way giving you better performance while also sacrificing the rawness of this particular generation, which, you know, in a way is kind of sad, but Audi was trying to appeal to a mass market with the B9 and B9.5. So in a way, you know, history can say it's very fair that Audi made that decision. It was the wise decision. But by doing so, you lost something. You lost the soul and character of this car. Now, when you do get into the corners, though, the steering does somewhat lighten up, becoming a bit more fluid. And you can really just throw it into the corners at lower speeds. I really can't experience any high-speed cornering here around rush hour in the Boston area, but I like what this car is offering, though. Yes, you do feel the weight, but I like the fact you feel a part of the whole experience. A manual would be most certainly necessary for an S5 if you're going to buy one. Now, it might fall into the category of being too small and too light to be considered a Grand Tour, but it does have some of those tendencies. It's not a flat-out GT car like a BMW M3, but for its time, this was kind of a good middle ground, even though I think that for someone who bought an A5, they would probably think an S5 was a bit too stiff and too firm. But I think that for someone looking for a car that might keep them out of trouble while still being fun to drive, this was the happy medium over the Audi RS5. But after this quick test drive, I want to experience more with the S5. I really do. I think for a car like this one, priced at around $25,000, this is almost a steal. This is one of those cars that in an era when everything is so expensive, you can hop into a low mileage S5 and have a lot of fun for a stock car. Yes, there's so many modifications out there, so many aftermarket support that you can really push this car to its limits and put on your own twist and your own style to this coupe. But if you're gonna keep it stock, I think you're gonna be very happy with the S5. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick overview for the Audi S5 of the B8.5 generation. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.